All right, I wanna make this video a little different because I can sit here and give you the same advice you probably heard 1,000 times. Use a stop loss, manage your risk, and yeah, all that matters, but you already know that. So instead, I wanna talk about the mistakes that I think actually keep swing traders from growing their account. So I'm not gonna waste your time, let's get straight into the video. So mistake number one, you're always trying to be in a trade. So this is probably one of the biggest ones, and it sounds obvious when I say it out loud, but I think way more people do this than they realize. You open your charts in the morning, you find a setup that's like decent, and then you start convincing yourself that maybe that stock could break out today. And the next thing you know, you're in a trade that you probably wouldn't have touched if you weren't actively looking for something to buy. So I've done this so many times. And honestly, I think social media made it even worse because every time you open Twitter, somebody's making money. Someone caught a 500% move, 1,000% move. And meanwhile, you're sitting there in cash thinking like, dang, like I'm a loser. That's a joke. But sometimes cash is literally the best position you can have, especially when the market is choppy like how it's been for the past like week or so. So you don't have to trade today. So if the setup isn't there, you don't force yourself to create one. Personally, I would rather take 2 setups that I genuinely love in a week than to take 10 mediocre trades because I felt like I needed to be doing something, if that makes sense. So that alone would have saved me a lot more money when I started. On to mistake number 2, you keep adding to down positions for the wrong reason. I'm not going against adding to a position, so don't get me wrong, I do it myself, but there's a huge difference between scaling into a position because that was your plan and adding because you're losing money and you want to save the trade. So an example would be that you would buy, a stock would drop 5% and then you think, well, I like it up there, so I should love it down here.
What?
So then you buy more and then it drops another 5%. And somehow this little swing trade that was supposed to be a normal position is now one of the biggest positions in your account. Like I said, I've been there. And the dangerous part is you actually feel smart while you're doing it. Because every time you add, you're averaging down. So now instead of thinking about whether a trade is still good, you're staring at your average thinking like, I just need this to get back to whatever level. And that's the moment when you have to catch yourself because lowering your average cost doesn't make your thesis better. So you have to ask yourself like, if I had 0 shares right now, would I buy this stock at this exact price? Forget your average, forget how much you're down. Would you actually open a new position at that level? So you have to keep in mind that when you're in this type of situation, you're adding because emotionally you want the first entry to work. So those are 2 completely different things. On to mistake number 3, your position is too big for you to think clearly. So this one took me a really long time to understand that sometimes your analysis isn't the problem, your position size is. So you can have a great setup and completely screw it up because you size way too big. If you think about it, when you have a normal size position and the stock pulls back like 1%, 2%, whatever, you look at your chart, nothing changed, and then you go on with your day. Now take that exact same trade with like 3 or 4 times the size, suddenly every move feels important. And I think every person eventually finds that number. Maybe technically you can afford to lose that amount of money, but that doesn't mean you can psychologically handle that trade. Personally, some of my easiest trades mentally are the ones where I know exactly what I'm risking and genuinely okay if I lose it. So the second you need a trade to work, there's a pretty good chance you're sizing in way too much. But enough of that, on to mistake number 4. You confuse being busy with getting better. And I think this advice could go much further beyond trading. I wanted to put this in the video because this is especially for newer traders. You can watch all the videos you want, you can take more trades. And because you're doing more trading related stuff, you assume you must be getting better. But you have to ask yourself, are you actually getting better? Because you can trade for 6 months and basically repeat the same month 6 times. And this is why I'm such a big believer in reviewing your trades. And actually, if you didn't know, I actually built a trade journal into our app where you can log your entries, exits, and all your notes, all that fun stuff. I'll leave a link below because trying to remember what you did 3 weeks ago is almost useless. So maybe your entries are actually good, but you sell every winner the second you see profit. Or maybe you do great when the overall market is trending, but every time the market gets choppy, you give half your profits back. You won't know any of this if every trade ends and you immediately move on to the next stock. Which leads me to mistake number 5, revenge trading. So you come into trading with a number in your head. I want to make 200 a day. I want to make 1,000 this week, whatever it is. I understand it because obviously we're all here to make money, but the market does not care what you need, like at all. There are weeks where it feels like every chart you open has a nice setup. And then there's weeks where I'll go through my entire watch list and every single setup just sucks. So the problem starts when you decide beforehand how much money the market owes you. So let's just say you're down 300 for the week. Now it's Friday, you know, you open your laptop, the charts, all that fun stuff. Are you actually looking for a good setup, or are you looking for a way to make your 300 back? So for me, some weeks I'm gonna make a lot of money, some weeks I'm gonna lose a lot of money. And then there's some weeks the smartest thing I can do is not trade at all. So when I look at all of these mistakes I mentioned in the video, I think most of them come back to one thing, which is impatience. You don't wanna wait for the right setup. You don't wanna wait for the pullback. You want something to happen right now. And like I said before, I get it. Nobody gets into trading thinking, I can't wait to spend the next 3 years learning how to be patient. But the market is absolutely brutal when you try to force results out of it, and especially with swing trading. Swing trading is mostly waiting. So you can spend hours researching a stock and then actually never buy it. You can enter a trade and watch it absolutely do nothing for 3 days, a week, whatever. And I think when I finally stopped seeing waiting as wasted time, trading became a lot easier. So if I had to start swing trading from zero, I would make things way simpler. I would probably pick 1 or 2 setups that I actually understand. I would keep my size very small, pause, enough that losses don't ruin my day. And I'll also spend way more time studying my own trades than trying to find the next stock everyone on Twitter is hyping. Trust me, I used to do that all the time. And if there's one thing I want you guys to take away from this video, is that you're not going to stop making these mistakes. Neither am I, nobody does. But the goal is to stop making the same mistakes over and over again. Maybe right now your biggest problem is chasing, so you should work on that. Or maybe someone else, you know, you realize your position sizing is way too much. You can fix that. And little by little, trading starts feeling, I guess, less random. And honestly, that's what I've been trying to teach throughout this entire swing trading series. I'm trying to help you guys build a process that actually makes sense to you and something you can stick with when the market gets difficult, like how it's been for the past few weeks. So if you want to know what I'm currently holding, my entries, my exits, all of that stuff, I've got the Discord link below. And seriously, if you watch all the way through these videos, I appreciate you guys. So enough of that. I'll see you guys in the next video.